Hi, this is JordanBelfort. Welcome to the inner game of wealth creation. I want to congratulate you for being a person of action. You know, there are two types of people in this world. There are those with reasons and those with results, and clearly you're the latter. Now, what you're going to find in this DVD is the Jumpstart program to the inner game of wealth creation. What happens inside your mind in the internal world, so you can then translate that into wealth in the external world. This is where you got to start here. And just so you know, the straight line system has been around for 22 years, something I created back in 1988. I've converted at least 12,000 people into millionaires. And I'll tell you three things that they all had in common. Number one, they had a desire to be rich. Number two, they were willing to embrace a simple, proven system, not try to reinvent the wheel, which is a very difficult thing to do. And third, they worked hard, because there are no shortcuts in life. I'm not one of those people that says, you know, take the system and get rich overnight, work 20 minutes a day in your bathroom. That doesn't exist in my world. I come from the real world, not the seminar world. And I want you to know that if you really put your mind to the system, honestly, ethically, and embrace it, both internally and externally, you will fly, you will flourish. Because we have both things that you need to be successful, the inner world and the external world. And that's what this DVD is all about, the inner game of wealth creation. So this DVD is from an event I did in Australia for Virgin Air, and it's really divided into two parts. Part one is actually my story. And when you listen to it, I want you not to just get caught up in the insanity and the glamour of it, but I want you to see and really think about what are the things that I did right? What are those things that led me to soar, to massive success, to make $50 million a year and to create all these millionaires? And I also want you to see what I did wrong. What were my ethical mistakes? How did I veer off course and ultimately lose it all? You learn more from your failures than your successes. And I will tell you, there are certain patterns in business and patterns in your mind that lead to massive success. And my goal with this DVD is to share the inner game with you. Not the outer game, we'll get to that later, but first I want to condition you to get you ready for the upcoming 3-day boot camp, where I'm going to really give you every nuance you need to achieve your goals. And my goal for you, just so you know, it's 6 figures in 6 months and to become a millionaire in short order. And again, not a get-rich-quick scheme, but to really put the time in and to get on the road, to be goal-oriented, and to go after it. This system, though, the straight line system, is a proven system that will work in your life if you apply it. This DVD is an introduction to the inner game of that system. So as I talk about the 4 strategies, the 4 elements that you need to master the inner game of success, I want you to think about it not just in terms of what happened in my life, but in terms of your own life. Number 1 is the ability to manage your emotional state, how you act and feel in the moment. It's very, very huge. Number 2, the beliefs you have. When I talk about limiting beliefs, I want you to think about your own limiting beliefs. Write them down. What is it that's been holding you back from achieving wealth and success in the past? What are your beliefs about money? What are your beliefs about the world around you? Do you control the world? Are you a creature of circumstance, or do you create circumstance? I want you to focus on strategies. These are how you actually go about things day to day. And lastly, I want you to focus on standards. This is actually what your set point is in your life for wealth, success, for happiness, for relationships, and you'll start to see that people have a tendency to rise up to a certain level and don't go past it. If they fall down, they work really hard and get back to that level. They rise above, but they stop working and then settle back down. I want you to focus on your standards, and I want you to think about starting to raise your standards. You know, what really is it that you will accept in your life as a must versus a should? Those are the 4 keys to the inner game of success. So to get the most out of this program, I want you to go back to it again and again over the next 4 or 5 weeks and keep writing things down that you see that relate to your own life, and start to focus on how you can make some changes day to day right now before you actually get to the seminar. So think about the things that are going on inside your mind that are holding you back, and we'll focus on those as soon as I see you in the seminar. So enjoy the DVD, and that's that. Change when you're ready is in a heartbeat. When you're a guy who wants to make a lot of money and you're a salesman, what do? You go down to Wall Street. There's patterns in human behavior. There's patterns that lead people to success and fulfillment, and there's patterns that lead people to failure and feeling empty and sadness and depression and anger. There's patterns for everything in life. Act as if you're a wealthy man, rich already, and you will become wealthy. Act as if you have all the answers, and the answers will come to you. Act as if you have unmatched confidence, and you will become confident. Act as if. I was told to act the physiology of wealth, of confidence, of success, because you generate the emotion like that. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. It's the experiences and the vision that we have, knowing where you want to go, right? See things as they are, not worse than they are, then better than they are, and making it that way. My life has been complete fucking insanity. I had a massive drug addiction, and it nearly killed me. I'm sober now for almost 13 years, which is a miracle in itself. It's a miracle that I'm actually standing here, probably considering all I did, because you can easily turn your lights out like that. But I did get sober, and it really was one of the easier things I've done in life, because one of the things I really believe in is that all change happens in an instant. That's it. Change doesn't take a long time. It's a misconception. It's got to be painful and costly and drag on forever. Change, when you're ready, is in a heartbeat. What takes a long time is feeling enough pain in your life, like I did, until you get ready to change. And just so you know, I'll put it out there, I ended up in a mental institution because I tried to commit suicide, and I ended up in jail, spent 22 months in jail, and lost everything. I lost my freedom, of course, all my money, my family for a time, and most importantly, I lost my self-respect. And the fact that I'm here tonight is a miracle, and I thank God for that, and also the fact that I was just, not willing to say die, because it would have been pretty easy in my circumstances just to give up. Let me start from the beginning. I'll go real quick, because I don't have that much time. I was pretty much a born entrepreneur from the time I emerged from my mother's womb. At 8 years old, I had a paper route. I was knocking on doors and expanding it, making money. At 10 years old, I was shoveling driveways after snowstorms. In the States, we have snow, 10, 12 inches. You go to people's driveways, 20 bucks a driveway, and you make money. I hit big for the first time at the age of 16. And I went down to Jones Beach in New York, which is kind of like Bondi Beach, but it's much bigger, and incredible amount of people packed in blanket to blanket to blanket. And what I did is each morning I'd go to an ice cream distributor and I'd load up a cooler with Italian ices, chipwich, and fudgicles, and I'd go blanket to blanket selling them at a huge markup. I'd pay 7 to 10 cents a piece for the ice cream and ices, sell them for $1. And I was making about 20,000 bucks a summer, and I put myself through college that way. I do not come from a rich family, but I come from a really good family. They always taught me right from wrong, which is very important to the story, because I kind of veered off course. My mother, from the time I was in the high chair getting applesauce, she was saying to me, the only noble way to become wealthy is to be a doctor. You got to be a doctor. You got to be a doctor. And it's almost like hypnosis. She inserted this belief in my mind that I should be a doctor. I didn't want to be a doctor. The thought of going 12 years after college to become a doctor was insanity to me. So I figured, let me just go to dental school. Dentists make a ton of money, and I'll be out in 5 years, including the residency afterwards. My mother will be happy because I'll still be Dr. Belfort, and that will be that. The first day of dental school, I walk in, it's an auditorium, it's for orientation, and the dean is standing up on a stage pretty much like this. There's 105 dental students in the audience. And then he says, but let me say this, the golden age of dentistry is over. If you're here to make a lot of money, you're probably in the wrong place. I was like, what the fuck? I'm in the wrong place. And I got up and I left. I had to come clean. I was really embarrassed, but I had to go home, and I took a job selling door to door. And I was selling steaks, shrimps, and lobster tails, knocking on people's doors. And this was the first time in my life that I realized I had a gift for sales. The first day, I broke the company record. First week, I shattered the company record. And just like that, the money started pouring in. And just so you know, like the ices business, it wasn't sales. It was hard work and perseverance, but it wasn't sales. Now, the words are flowing. I just knew instinctively what to say. After a few weeks, I said, you know, why am I buying the meat from this company when I can go to the market myself and buy the meat and make the double markup? It seemed pretty similar to the ices deal. I had high hopes, and I went out, bought a truck, and started selling. Made some money, bought a second truck, a third truck. Before I knew it, I had 26 trucks on the road, was making a ton of money, I thought, and it was flowing in, cash flow flowing in. I made just about every possible mistake a first-time business owner can make. I was overexpanding, I was undercapitalized, I wasn't screening out my employees. I found out later half of them were smoking crack. They would take my trucks and they would just disappear. Like 5 days, they'd be best people, and One day they're just gone. I find the truck under a bridge, and it was dry ice, so the meat was thawed out. It was a total disaster. And when the barbecue season ended, the cash flow dried up. Everyone's in business, you know. I had all the payables coming due. I'd grown on credit, and wham, just like that, I was out of business. I had a little red Porsche, and there was a tear in my eye when the tow truck came and repossessed my Porsche, and I was left with absolutely nothing. So in New York, when you're a guy who wants to make a lot of money, and you're a salesman, what do? You go down to Wall Street. And that's how I started my career on Wall Street. And I literally sold myself a job. I had to go in there and beg for it because I didn't have business experience. Not that you need that to be a stockbroker. It's a real misconception. But they gave me a job because I swore I'd work harder than anybody else. I could sell. They sensed something in my spirit and my tone of voice. And they hired me. I was getting paid $80 a week to go down to Wall Street to work there. It was costing me $100. So I was going backwards 20 hours. I was working on weekends at the beach to sell ices to make my rent. At nighttime, I was going into office buildings selling costume jewelry, door to door. I was doing anything I could to get through this trading program. And I got to tell you this, it was 1987, and the kids were making, 25 to 32, were making so much money, I could not even believe it. $500,000 to $1 million on the low side, someone making $2 million as stockbrokers. It was the bull market of the 80s, and the market was roaring. My first day as a stockbroker, the day I passed my exam, was October 19th, 1987, the day of the great stock market crash. And I watched in fucking awe as the stock market went down 508 points in one day. You could have heard a pin drop in the boardroom. And everyone was like, oh my God, the party's over. I'm like, what? The party's, I watched the party, didn't make a freaking dime, okay? And the firm closed down. It was one of the biggest firms on Wall Street. In business 120 years. They lost all their money the day of the crash, and boom, just like that, I was out of a job again. And no one was hiring. That evening, as I went downstairs, the New York Post, which is like a sleazoid paper from the States in New York, it's like on the cover, the death of Wall Street. All stockbrokers will become cab drivers. I was like, oh. I went home literally like a zombie, my tail well between my legs. And here was the last and final insult. My wife, great lady, but she was not the sharpest tool in the shed. She wasn't. And all she did was watch soap operas all day and Oprah. So while everybody in the free world knew that the market had crashed, it was everybody but her. So when I walked in the door, she had champagne. And she comes running up, congratulations, how was your first day as a stockbroker? I'm like, how was my first day as a stockbroker? I started, just like that, a disaster. Okay? I took a punch, and you know in life, sometimes you take a punch, and you know, for 12 hours, maybe even 24 hours, I was paralyzed with fear, uncertainty, all these negative emotions, and then finally I said, you know what, I have to pay the rent, and no one on Wall Street's hiring. I picked up the Help Wanted section in the paper to find a sales job, because I knew I could sell anything. I was just seemed to be finding the wrong things to sell. Meat wasn't it, and stocks wasn't it. By chance, I stumbled upon an ad for a small brokerage firm in Long Island, which is about 40 miles east of Wall Street. It's not on Wall Street. And I walked in there just, you know, by chance, give it a try, and they were selling penny stocks. Now, I did not know what a penny stock was. I didn't know. Conceptually, I got it was a stock under $1. I didn't know what the context was, what the meaning was, what it represented. And the truth is, in spite of the fact that I walked in the door and saw that nothing in this room that I was walking into resonated of wealth, success, or Wall Street, it was like walking into caveman days. The brokers are walking around in jeans and sneakers, yelling into their phones, lying. I was like, this is crazy. I worked in a classy organization on Wall Street, but there were two words playing in my mind: rent money, rent money, rent money, rent money. So I took the job. First day again, broke the company record. First month, I shattered the company record, and within 6 months, I was by far the top broker in this company. I had a little crew of guys around me, about 6 or 8 of them, that were listening to my sales pitch when I was on the phone. I was kind of organizing my own system of selling, but very loosely. And then came the opportunity to open my own firm. It came to me. And at first I was reluctant because I'd failed once before, and I think probably many of you know this feeling. When you fail, sometimes you tend to take it personally. Like, not I failed, but I am a failure. I am not meant to be in business for myself. I don't have what it takes. All these false limiting beliefs that sometimes people get, many of us have probably gotten them in this room. I know I have. And because of that, I was reluctant at first. I hit on two things. Two fundamental things that allowed me to soar to the highest levels of Wall Street. Literally within a year, I was making $50 million a year, and the firm was exploding like you can't imagine. And here's what they were. Number one, I had the ability, for whatever reason, to train virtually any human being, regardless of age, race, creed, color, socioeconomic background, educational status. There were no members of the Lucky Sperm Club in my firm, I'll tell you that right now. But they would come to me with this much desire, and I could amplify it again, and I could somehow tap into the resources that they had, show them a few things, assist them, and bang, within 6 months they'd be rich. The second thing that I did was I stumbled upon a niche in the market of selling $5 stocks to the wealthiest 1% of Americans. No one had ever tried it before. It was an odd thing, because it's very logical, but no one had done it in an organized fashion. And the word on Wall Street was, oh, rich people won't buy $5 stocks. And in fact, they were already buying them. Just no one was doing it in an organized way. So I stumbled upon that. Those two things together caused me to soar. The ability to train and motivate anybody, and this niche I had, so anybody they called with my system was interested. Now, flash forward, and as the firm grew, the insanity took hold because my addiction started. And when the owner is addicted, what happens to the employees? They want to emulate the owner. And a lot of people started doing drugs. There was a lot of testosterone in the room. Men outnumbered women 10-1. Everyone was in their early 20s, late teens, early 20s. People were having sex under desks and coat closets. It was like it became Sodom and Gomorrah on Long Island. Just like that, it got away from me. And ultimately, I crashed and burned. And I was indicted, and I served 22 months in jail. Now, the insanity continues, because when I went to jail, guess who my bunkmate is? Tommy Chong from Cheech and Chong. Can you imagine this? They put me in a bunk with Tommy Chong. Because he was a celebrity inmate, and I was a celebrity, and they put us together to watch us. So when I walked, I'm like, hey, I thought you were here. He goes, yeah, I heard you were coming. And we were like, together, we shared a little cube. And at nighttime, there's nothing to do in jail. So what you do is you tell each other stories. But I would tell him this, and he's literally now rolling on the floor, which is a pretty good thing in jail, because you want to laugh because it's miserable, right? And I wasn't in the worst jail, just so you know. I mean, it wasn't Bubba. I wasn't like, what about Bubba in the shower? It wasn't like that. It was minimum security, okay? But I did fly on Con Air, where I had to be locked up next to Bubba, and I was clenching my ass cheeks for all. I was like, oh my God, nervous. Okay, but I did serve time with this Tommy Chong, and the next day he comes to me and he says, I gotta tell you, I thought you were full of shit. I didn't think you could possibly live this life, but I called my wife, she Googled you, and it's all on the internet. She goes, it's Time Magazine, you actually did this shit. He goes, and you look pretty good considering all the drugs you did. He goes, I think you look like Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones, right? You got to write a book. Just write the way you speak. It'll be a great book. People will love to read this stuff. It was the most difficult thing I ever tried. It's a different skill than speaking. It doesn't translate. After 1 month, I had 1 page, and it was awful. I just couldn't capture my voice, right? But I hate to quit, and I went into the prison library, and I stumbled upon a book, just by chance, called Bonfire of the Vanities, written by Tom Wolfe. Some of you have probably read it, you're nodding your heads. It's an amazing book, and he is a brilliant author. Oh my God, this is how I want to write, just like that. Then I picked up a highlighter and started highlighting things, looking for patterns, and I used the book as a textbook to teach myself to write. Because there's always patterns in everything. There's patterns in writing, there's patterns in human behavior. There's patterns that lead people to success and fulfillment, and there's patterns that lead people to failure and feeling empty and sadness and depression and anger. There's patterns for everything in life, but for me at that moment, it was about patterns in writing. And I patterned Tom Wolfe, I modeled, it's important word, modeled Tom Wolfe's writing style, and slowly my writing began to improve. Finally, I had about 300 pages, and I was ready to get out of jail. And I said, you know what? Not good enough. And I ripped them all up. And out of sheer desperation, and I say desperation, not like desperate for money, but desperation to make sense of my life, I started writing again. I said, let me just try by chance to call an agent. I knew some guy very casually. Called him and said, hey, Joel, I want to write my life story. He's like, oh, great story. Let's get a ghostwriter. I said, no, I want to write it myself in my voice and tell the story the way I want to tell it. So I sent him the 5 pages. He says, I'll call you next week. The next morning, he calls me and says, who fucking wrote those pages? He goes, did Tom Wolfe write those pages? I swear to God.
He goes, write 10 more pages for me. Let me just see if there was a fluke or something, or maybe I did pay time off, So I wrote 10 more pages, hit the send button, and 10 minutes later he goes, stop everything you're doing in your life and become a writer. He goes, there's something special about, I don't know what it is, it's a voice that you have, and I love it. I'll get this sold to the biggest publisher in America, and so on and so forth. I was like, no fucking way. I was like, I didn't believe him. I thought he was delusional. Agents can be that way sometimes, They want to pump up the guy, and I'm like, well, what the hell, I have nothing to lose. So I hunkered down in my house, and I spent 8 months writing The Wolf of Wall Street, my first book. After about 2 months, I was on page 100, still on my first day of my life. I couldn't get past day 1. I had a complicated life. After about 2 months, I was on page 100, still on my first day of my life. I couldn't get past day 1. I had a complicated life, as you imagine. But I sent the pages to my agent just to get a read on it, and he's like, wow, amazing. I'm going to Random House tomorrow. It's a company I had a relationship with. I'm going to sell this book, and that he did. Sold the book to Random House. The book was then immediately sold to Australia. And then before the book was even published, when the manuscript was done, Hollywood caught wind of it, and a bidding war started between Brad Pitt on one side and Leonardo DiCaprio on the other, which is pretty amazing. I mean, Brad Pitt was with Paramount, and DiCaprio was with Warner. And I guess it's fashionable to play a drug addict who also is a businessman, because I'm drooling by day and then cutting deals at night, or really the opposite, cutting deals during the day and drooling by night. I guess you can win an Oscar for that sort of thing, the up and the down, right? So they were bidding and bidding and bidding, and I was in a good spot because each side was saying, whatever they give you, I'll give you 10% more. And up and up and up and up the bidding went. And finally, Leo calls me, he goes, hey, Jordan, Leo DiCaprio, I'd never spoken to him before. He goes, I have someone on the phone that wants to speak to you, Marty Scorsese. And Marty, you think I talk fast? Forget about it. This guy was talking so fast, I didn't know what he was saying, but I knew it was Marty, and he had a vision. I was like, how could I refuse that? They just won the Oscar for The Departed, so I said, screw it. I sold it to Warner Brothers for DiCaprio and Scorsese to star in and direct, and that was that. Calls start coming in for me to speak publicly, and I wouldn't do it. I was like, no way, how could I ever get up and tell my story after all the mistakes I made? So I didn't do it. As many offers that came in, I rejected them all, and all I would focus on was the one negative article that would get written every once in a while. I'd say, you see, but my past will always haunt me, and I focused on the problem. As the story goes, I was out for lunch with Leo DiCaprio one day, and we were talking, and some of his friends were there, and there was a couple of them. They were having some issues themselves with the movie they were trying to get made. And Leo's like, come on, you're a motivator. I read the book. You're like, come, you can really do this stuff. Get us motivated. Talk to us. So I started going to my motivational rap and the whole thing about taking action and looking at your problem and not looking at your problem, looking at the solution. And they're like, Jesus, that's really inspiring. So you got to go on the speaking circuit. And like, I'm all the stuff in my past. Who would want to listen to a guy like me? He's like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Everyone wants to hear this. They want to hear the guy who never made a mistake. It's the guy who made the mistake that you can learn from, the guy who came back and you see the lessons. That's what inspires people. So he said, I'm going to write you a letter. And he wrote me this amazing letter, because it was really about the guy that I was then versus the guy I used to be. And he sent the letter out, and the response was overwhelming, and yet still, I was reluctant to go out and speak. And I'll tell you why. There were 2 reasons. Number 1, it was true that I could motivate any person, like I said, regardless of age, race, so on and so forth, but I didn't know how. I did not know how I was doing it. I was running what's called an unconscious strategy. Sometimes we do things really, really well, but we do them so well, we don't even know how we're doing them. We just have a strategy. It flows, it comes from inside you. You don't have to think about it. So I wasn't sure how I was doing it. And the second thing, and just as important, was the fact that I did some things really, really wrong. And I didn't want to go out there and glamorize my past. If I know those things, what caused me to have the great success and what caused me to crash and burn, that's something that I could distill down to its essence and share with people, whether it's in an hour or a couple of days. Of course, it's better if it's a couple of days, because I could do it experientially, get people to move through some of these techniques and strategies versus just talking about it. But either way, I needed to know the essence of it, both ways, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So what I did is I sought myself a guru, not an Indian on a hill, but those gurus. This is a guy who is literally the founder of the modern day self-development industry, and his name is Dr. Richard Bandler. And he invented a technology called neuro-linguistic programming. And what it was is the study of success, the study of modeling. What makes people succeed? What makes people fail? What are the techniques? How does the brain work? The psychology of success. That being said, I went down to Bandler, total immersion, stayed there, and it tapped his brain, and it changed my life. What is the mindset of success? The psychology that leads people to achievement. That being said, I went down to Bandler, total immersion, stayed there, and it tapped his brain, and it changed my life. Because he did indeed clarify the things I had done at the highest level. And he said to me, he goes, you've done 4 things at the highest possible level. And because of that, you excelled wildly in business. And those 4 things don't just apply to business, they apply to someone's personal life too. Family, community, spirituality, your lover, your spouse, your partner. They apply to every aspect of life, these 4 things. And when you do them at a really, really high level, you can perform off the charts. And then he said to me, there's 2 things that you did miserably. And those are the things that caused you to crash and burn. Now, the first thing he said, though, which really stuck in my mind, was your biggest problem is that your mother never gave you your owner's manual. I was like, what? He's like, your owner's manual. Imagine this. You went to the computer store, you bought a laptop, and you never got an instruction manual on how to use it. How many things could you possibly use on this computer? Maybe if you're lucky, you could get on the internet, bang out a couple of functions, but without a manual, instruction guide, you're never going to be able to even tap into this much potential of a computer. And your brain, my brain, your brains, human brains are far more powerful than even the most powerful supercomputer invented by NASA, the NSA, doesn't matter, not in the same league, yet we never got owner's manuals. And the fundamental thing is this. See, I walked around my whole life thinking that my emotions were as a result of the environment. When things in the environment went well, I felt good. When things were going badly, I feel bad. And I'm like a seesaw, and the environment is playing me, and I'm living out a script based on it. And that was Bandler's first thing. He goes, that is not true. Right now, within inside you, there are 6,000 emotions. And every single one of them is available to you right this moment. You can summon it up. It's not that difficult, but we're not taught to be that way, to think that way. We have old software playing in our minds that we have to wait for certain things to happen to feel good. And the irony is that, some people say success is money or, being loved by people. The truth is, I don't care how many people say they love you, how much money you might have. If you're feeling negative emotions all day, fear, anxiety, depression, greed, if you're feeling those things, your life sucks. Doesn't matter how much money you have, right? Some person saying, oh no, if I have a lot of money, it's still good. But it's true. It's not true. It's the emotions that we feel that dictate the quality of our life. And I was like an emotional piñata, reacting to everything around me and living a script out based on that. And the bottom line, it's really troubling because the truth of the matter is that shit happens. This bumper, right, we know from tonight, shit happens. You're walking along doing everything right, and wham, you get hit in the eyes with a lump of kangaroo shit, just like that, boom, and everything is unraveling before you. That's what happens. And then we tend to tell ourselves a story about why we don't have what we have. This is what I did. We tell ourselves a story of why we don't have what we have, when in truth, the only thing that stops us from getting what we want is the story we tell ourselves of why we can't have it. Because the story stops us from seeing the truth. Unless you know the truth, you can't go anywhere. If you have a map, imagine your life as a map, perfect map. If you don't know the starting point and you set a goal, which is your ending point, how can you get there if you're not truthful with yourself? So my philosophy is this, it always was, is see things as they are, but not worse than they are. And that's what a lot of people do. They see things worse than they are. And they tell that story and they say, oh, it's so terrible, only a madman would possibly take action. So that's their excuse for not doing anything about their problems. So see things as they are, not worse than they are, then see them better than they are, and make them that way. And there are some people, you ever read the book The Secret? Who's read the book, The Secret? This is the biggest freaking joke ever, okay? Here's what The Secret says. It says, go to your couch and sit down and imagine, close your eyes, imagine a big fat check with your name on it and 25,000 Australian dollars. And then imagine the check showing up in your mailbox. And just keep putting that energy out into the ether, and sure enough, a check will show up in your mailbox. Bullshit! If that's your strategy for achievement, the only thing that'll show up in your mailbox is a freaking eviction notice. They'll be towing your car away, right? And you'll be looking at your garden saying, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no... Bullshit, there's weeds in your garden. And you got to pull them out or they're going to take your garden. So my sense is, be realistic, be intelligent, and don't see things worse than they are. So that was really the first thing Bandler said. It was about software in my head that was old, outdated, and was not empowering. The four things that allowed me to really succeed at the highest level were this. Number one was the ability to manage people's state. Your physiological, emotional state, which is how you feel in the moment. It's not an ability thing, it's not talent, it's the state that you're in, the physiological, emotional state. And there are two things that control the state that we're in. And the first is the physiology that we have, how we hold our body and move our body. See, most people, me included, thought that something would happen bad, I'd feel bad, and then I'd drop my shoulders. And that was the result of the bad feeling. This is not true. We do depression physiologically. How to do depression is hardwired into our nervous system. The same way happiness is hardwired. People will turn the corners of their mouth up. They'll breathe deeply. They'll look straight up. There's a happy physiology. It's very apropos for this company, for Virgin, because one of the things you notice about the stewardesses and the people that really the support staff is there's a physiology of happiness. You might call it put a smile on your face, which is the cliche, but the truth of the matter is that when you do that, you create chemical changes in your brain through endorphins and enkephalins, and you feel better. But that's not most of the software that we have. We've been taught to, if things are going bad, you got to frown. Then you're done. Act as if you're a wealthy man, rich already, and you will become wealthy. Act as if you have all the answers, and the answers will come to you. Act as if you have unmatched confidence, and you will become confident. Act as if. I was told to act the physiology of wealth, of confidence, of success, because you generate the emotion like that. That's the first part of state management. Now, just so you know, I study this stuff and I try to live it every day, but it's pretty hard. You can't always manage. You're not a robot. Bad things happen, and you feel bad for a while. You take a punch, you're going to feel bad. The question is, how long? Because where focus goes, energy flows. Here's just as a quick example. Everyone just look around the room and look for blue. Okay, now everybody please close your eyes just for a second. And now with your eyes closed, tell me everything in the room that you see that's red. Now open your eyes and look for red, look for red, look for red, look for red, look for red. You see a lot more red now. Why? Because you're looking for it. There's a portion of our brain called the reticular activating system that chooses what we're going to focus on. And once you ignite that RAS, the reticular activating system, you will see what you're looking for and block out everything else. So if you're focusing on the negative, on your problems, the opportunities go right over your head. Even worse is when I do this in a seminar, I'll say, okay, someone raise your hand, tell me what's red. And they'll point to, this is red right here. Say that person's tie is red, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll say, your dress is red. But it's really not. It's not exactly red, but people will make shit up to be right. So if you're focusing, looking for a problem, you'll start making problems up where none exist. This is what we do as human beings. When someone's living in the problem and not the solution, this is what they're doing. They're seeing only the red and making stuff up that's not even red and crashing right into it. So that's the thing I did at my company. Number one, at the highest level, state management. Inserting empowering beliefs and breaking down the limiting beliefs. Because nothing is more destructive to success than limiting beliefs. It's like having a governor on a Ferrari. Just imagine you have the sleekest Ferrari with 500 horsepower, 12 valves, 12 cylinders, 4 valves per cylinder. But if the governor's on the engine stopping the flow of gas, the car ain't going over 55. You can't exceed the capability of the governor, and you can't exceed the capability of your limiting belief. It stops you from charging forward when you should and causes you to move backwards when you shouldn't. Empowering beliefs lead to a lifetime of joy and happiness, and disempowering beliefs lead to a life of quiet desperation. It's the way it is. You cannot rise above the level of your limiting beliefs. Crack those limiting beliefs. And the way you do it is very simple, because a belief is nothing but an idea that you're really certain about. Just imagine the belief is a tabletop. That's the idea. And the legs beneath the table are the references that make you think you're right. Because we take beliefs as the facts of life. So my belief was what? That my past will always haunt me, and my reference to any negative article or anything that happened, I'd say, you see, I'm right, my past will always haunt me. That's how a belief is built. But what happens is this: the truth is, and one of the fundamental tenets of neurolinguistic programming is, we are not our past experiences. We are the capabilities and the resources that we've gleaned from them. Shit happens to people. You make huge mistakes. But you're not those mistakes. You're not your bankruptcy. You're not your failure. What you are is the lessons that you've learned from that you can use now. You're the resources that you've gleaned from that you could use now. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it's true. You go back to any belief that you have, and you look at it from a different angle with different resources, and you have unconditional love, confidence, clarity, certainty, and your beliefs all of a sudden take on an entirely new meaning. And it starts with the language that you apply to them. Is it the end or is it the beginning? Is God punishing me, or is God giving me the opportunity of a lifetime? It's language. And these beliefs that we have, because they're below the surface, we take them as facts of life. And they're not. They're just beliefs. That was the second thing I did at the highest level. It's what you see in this company with your CEO, and Branson himself, with this vision. Its belief is that you can accomplish anything, is the fundamental belief behind Virgin. To go into markets no one else goes into, to create value where other people don't see it. That's what Virgin's all about. And it's interesting. You see that some of the commercials are really cool, right? I like the last one with all the stewardesses. You see the commercial of Australia? It's great, okay? And you see all this great stuff, and then I went on the plane. It's amazing. And it's like that. It's beautiful, and it's great. And that experience, that vision, is what drives any company, any individual forward in life. What we do in life is, where do our beliefs come from? They start from our parents. Our parents insert beliefs in us. My mother did dental school. I should be a doctor, right? That was a belief that she inserted. And they come from parents first, teachers, peers, the movies. You know what happened when I made my first $650,000 on Wall Street? The first thing I did was I went out and bought a white Ferrari Testarossa. Why? Because I saw Don Johnson driving at Miami Vice. That was my belief of what you did when you were successful. You wanted to look like that. The second thing I did, it's even more laughable. I went out to the West Coast and checked into the Regent Beverly Wilshire presidential suite. Why? Because Richard Gere had done it in Pretty Woman. The best. But the most destructive belief that was ever installed in my mind: greed is good. Greed cuts through. Greed. I'm like, oh, greed is good. Belief. Bullshit. Greed is not good. Greed is fucking destructive. Greed is about literally wanting as much as you can, as fast as you can, and you don't care who gets hurt along the way. The first thing that happens when greed takes hold is all ethics go flying out the window. Once I stepped over that line, bam, and I stepped back and did it right, you're done. Because my line of morality moved slightly to here. Next time I did something wrong, I moved further because my line had moved. Next time, further still, until before I knew it, I was doing things I never thought I'd do, associating with people I never thought I'd associate with, and everything seemed perfectly all right. It's like you dip your toe into a piping hot bathtub, and you're like, oh shit, it's hot. And 5 minutes later, you're submerged under the water and it feels just fine. Desensitization. You can't be half pregnant when it comes to ethic, and it starts with beliefs. Greed's not good. It's ambition. That's good. Passion. That's good. That's what's good. Ambition's behind growth, behind contribution, to make things better for everyone around you and yourself, and not to slash and burn along the way. I didn't have that distinction in my life, and it destroyed me. The third thing that I did at the highest level at my firm was strategies. I had the most effective strategy for selling. See, it doesn't matter how motivated you are, how much belief you have in yourself, how well you can manage your state. If you're doing things ass backwards, you're not going to succeed. So the idea is that when you do something, don't just do it, haphazardly. You need to have a formula. What a strategy is this? You do something once and you succeed, it could be an accident. You do it twice, you've got a strategy. The easiest way to develop a strategy for success is to model somebody else that's already successful. By modeling someone that was successful, you turn decades into days. Strategy is everything when it comes to success. And one thing you do see in Virgin is they have strategies for success. And there's vision. They don't care about what happens short term. They have a path. They go for it regardless. Strategy. Fourth thing I did at the highest level was standards, raising my broker's standards. Now this is tricky here because in truth I didn't. Not real standards, but I raised their monetary standards. But the first thing I said is, when you walk in this door, bang, you better make $250,000 your first year or you're suspect. To these kids who never thought they'd make more than 80 grand. Second year, you better make $500,000 or you're considered weak and worthless. Third year, million or more, you're a complete laughingstock. Now that's not true, but the impact it has on the psychology of a person is traumatic. I raised their standards of what they thought they needed in life. What our standards are is this: there are musts. We always get our musts, but we seldom get our shoulds. We seldom get our shoulds, but we always get our musts. So the idea is to raise your standards is to turn your shoulds into musts. When you have poor standards, you're doing everything poorly. You don't commit to your job. You do it the second someone turns around. You stop doing your job. You do the littlest to get by. That's poor standards at the bottom. The next level up is good standards, and it's a giant leap. It's a giant leap from poor to good. Good standards is, you're doing everything right. Many of us were taught to be good. That's what I was taught to be, was good. Now the next level up from good is another giant leap up to excellent standards, which is where most of the people in this room live, if not higher. And that's when you're doing everything at the highest level possible. You're an achiever. When you're lifting a table, there's 4 people lifting a table. The person with poor standards will pretend he's lifting it. And the other people, why is this fucking thing so heavy, right? Because one person is not doing the job. When you have excellent standards, you're doing your job. You're trying to get the best out of life in all levels, in business, personally. The problem, again, is that nowadays it's getting more difficult in the world. When you have excellent standards, sometimes you only get good results, and you get pissed. Now, the beauty is this. If poor standards are at the bottom, it's a giant leap from poor to good, another giant leap from good to excellent. At the level above excellent, which is extraordinary standards, it's only 2 millimeters away. There are so many ways that people sabotage themselves by not committing to that little bit extra at the top of really managing their state or empowering beliefs or strategies. It's all rolled up into one as your standards, what you will not tolerate less than. I'll tell you a funny story. It's really apropos for Virgin. It's about customer service, because there are 2 types of people in customer service. You have ducks and you have eagles. And the ducks are the worst people to have in customer service because they just waddle around trying to get by, doing as little as possible, and they never try to help you. The girl on the phone, she was a duck. Quack, 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 not going to help you ever. And eagles want to soar. So I had an experience. I was on vacation July 4th, and I ran into a duck. I wanted to rent a jet ski. And there was 4 jet skis right out in the lake, and this girl, the duck, was right behind the desk. I said, can I rent these jet skis? She goes, no, I'm sorry. Someone's rented them for the hour. I look at my watch, it's 12:30. Like the hour is half over. I said, well, they're not here. She's like, well, they reserved them. I said, are they paying? No. I said, well, I'll pay for the rest of the half hour right now. But I'm sorry, this rule is that once they're rented, you can't have them. I said, but they're not rented. She goes, doesn't matter. The rule is once someone rents. I said, listen, you gotta be able to rent. My kids wanted to go on the jet skis. It's no big deal. They're just sitting there vacant. I'm sorry, I can't do it. Duck, whack, whack, whack. She's going on. I see the billboard growing as we're talking, right? So I said to her, what many of you have probably said is, let me speak to somebody else. So she's like, I'm sorry, They'll say the same thing as me. There's no use. You cannot rent it. I'm like, let me speak to somebody else that doesn't believe this cannot be done. That's all I ask. She's like, fine. And she gets up and she starts going behind these double doors. I'm like, stop. So she's like, what? I said, don't go behind those doors. I said, there's a duck pond back there. I know, more ducks. She looked at me, I said, go upstairs. I want an eagle. Sure enough, they got me an eagle. Boom, I got the jet skis, just like that. Okay, one thing I will say for Virgin, not because you sponsor me, the customer service is great. That's eagles. The hardest thing is to turn a duck into an eagle. But you can, but you got to get back to the beliefs in the beginning. You got to insert the state management and so on and so forth. That's standards. Standards are life. The things I did really, really bad and what caused me to crash and burn was, number one, values. I had bankrupt, upside-down values. 15 years ago, if you would have asked me what my number one value was, I would have said money, making money. Number two was power. I want more and more power. Number three, sex, with as many partners as I could, despite the fact I was married. It's disgusting, but it's true. That was one of my values, to be cool. That was connection to me. Number four was drugs, getting high. Number five was spirituality, although it was mostly in the form of drug-induced hallucinations, right? I was seeing spirits, right? And number six was family. Now, I had a daughter, and I still do, and a son. I'm very close to them now, but back then, I thought I was the greatest dad. I had tons of money. We're in a big mansion, lots of property with armed bodyguards around, and I thought I was great because I was giving them the life. Private schools, nice clothes. Meanwhile, my daughter's on the swing set saying, Daddy, come out and play. And I'm in the closet smoking a crack pipe, thinking I'm a good dad. Because my value of getting high was above children. See, our values are our targets in life. We always look to hit our values. If those are your values, no offense, it's those are fucking straight up values, right? Those values are the worst. Those values will lead you to a life of pain. And that's why I had pain. I soared fiscally because I had the system, those four things at the highest level. And if you look at your own life, I'm sure you'll see if you're doing anything really well, you're doing those four things at the highest level. If you're doing kind of well in something, maybe you're doing some but not the others. And if something in your life is a disaster, you're probably not doing any of those four things.
So I hope you enjoyed the DVD. And I want you not just to, look at it as an entertainment vehicle, but really start to apply the lessons that you've learned. Start trying to use them in your own life right now. Look at your beliefs. Write down 3 empowering beliefs that you have, things that really serve you, and write down 3 disempowering beliefs. I want you to start thinking about eliminating the habits that cause you to be where you are right now, that sort of level of mediocrity, and start focusing on the empowering beliefs that serve you and help you propel you to the future. Next, I want you to focus on the 7 things that actually hold people back from being successful. First is that they have goals instead of a vision for their life. Second, they don't follow proven systems. They try to reinvent the wheel. Third, this is a good one, they think money doesn't matter. They think that, I can live on love alone, and hey, I'm a big believer in love, but you can't bring love to the bank. You can't pay the rent with love, so money does matter. Next, I want you to focus on not playing the game not to lose. I want you to start playing life to win. Not settle for second best, to actually go for it. Next, I want you to stop making your decisions slowly and changing your mind quickly. Now, let me just real quick tell you about that. I don't want you to start acting randomly in everything you see, but when you've analyzed something and you know it makes sense, you make a decision, you go for it. You don't think about it and dwell on it. And that's one of the traits that all wealthy people have. When they see an opportunity and know it makes sense, they go for it. Next, I want you to focus on choosing a mentor that has real-world experience. Lots of people call themselves coaches, life coaches, wealth coaches. I want you to choose someone. I know I'm a mentor to you right now, which is fabulous, but you can have more than one mentor in your life. And I want you to really be careful who you model and who you allow to give you advice. There's lots of people out there that say they know this, they know that, but in the end, they're just giving you hollow advice, which is not based on experience. 3 things to look for in a mentor. Number 1, they've done what you want to do at the highest level. Number 2, they've mentored other people successfully. And number 3, you can relate to them. They're not telling you to do something you can never see yourself doing, too complicated and whatnot. So that's really what I want you to focus on with mentors. And lastly, I want you to make sure that you start taking responsibility for your world. See, there are three things that happen when you start looking at the world as happening to you. The first thing is you start blaming people. You play the blame game. We all know what that is. Second, we start justifying. We don't have wealth for this, for that reason. It's the economy. My boss is an idiot. Million reasons why you can justify why you don't have what you want in life. And lastly, which is the worst of all, you complain. And the thing about complaining is what you're doing is you're focusing on everything that's wrong in your life. And, I'm a big believer in some laws of the universe. And, one thing is that what you focus on expands. And what you focus on, you attract into your life. So think about it. If you're focusing on everything that's wrong in your life, all the crap in your life, what do you become? You become a giant crap magnet. It all starts coming at you. And you're like, I don't know why. Things are so bad. Well, stop complaining. You get it? So there's 7 things. Just internalize those, and I'll see you soon. We're going to really hit this hard, hit the ground running. Inner game of wealth. But when you're at the 3-day boot camp, we're going to be getting hardcore with real-world strategies. And again, all I ask is this. Be prepared to work. Nothing happens for free in life. It takes some effort. Second, have that desire. Build that desire for wealth to raise your standards. And third, remember this. There are no get-rich-quick schemes in life. But there is only one way to get rich, and that's quickly. It takes time to line up all the elements of success. Take a little bit of time. But once they're lined up and everything is as it should be, bam, the money starts pouring in. That's my message to you. Focus on your inner game, and I will see you soon. Thank you. Have a great day.